I will be going over the 1 to 21 risk to reward trade I caught on Jump 50 index right here, breaking down my exact trade strategy. And I did share the trade setup here in my free Telegram channel, as you can see. And also the trade signal was given freely. Right here with proofs that the trade was taken. So let's get straight into it. A very simple, basic concept that you need to understand is learning to see the markets in multi-time frame perspective. Personally, for me, every potential trade setup has to start with paying attention to the daily or the weekly time frames. Now, the very first thing the strategy entails is to establish the market's direction. Where is the market headed? Or clearly from the daily time frame, jump 50 index right here is been presenting us lower highs and lower lows. Then we had the lower low right here. We had this being the most recent lower low. And this being a clear case of a bearish market structure. Having established that the market's direction is headed to the downside, it's safe to say we only want to be looking out for selling opportunities, as there would be higher probability trade opportunities in line with the market's direction. So the first thing to do is identify the market's direction. Where is the market headed? And once you have been able to identify the market direction, the next thing would be to identify an area of interest. And for me, an area of interest would be a level that price has repeatedly tested in the past. And for every of the times that price tested the level, price has had huge movements in the opposite direction. Now I will explain that very shortly. Where price presented us a lower high right about here, and then we had a sell-off, breaking below the previous low, forming a new lower low. And then as soon as we add this confirmed shift, as soon as we add this confirmed lower low right about here. Having seen the market in the bearish structure, the next thing would be identifying an area where potentially we want to look to get in on selling opportunities. And then the very next level that comes to mind within this level right about here, the most recent lower high, so the most recent lower low. So we only want to look for our area of interest anywhere within this level, from the most recent lower high to the most recent low. Because when one's price goes anywhere past this level, we no longer want to be looking for selling opportunities anymore, as that would signify that the market's direction has changed from bearish to bullish. So anywhere within this level is where I want to identify my area of interest. And then the level that comes to mind within that price range would be this level right about here. Owing to the fact that looking to the left, when we tested the level from the downside, we had the level held up, acting as a resistance. And as soon as we traded into the level, we had a huge sell off from the level. And then we had a break above the level, only to retest the level from the upside now. And then we had a huge price rally to the upside. And then we had the third time, price coming to the level from the upside. And then as soon as we tested the level, we had a huge price rally again to the upside. Also somewhere here, we had the level also tested from the upside and then a huge price rally before eventually seeing this price sell-off that broke past the level. And then as soon as we had the break of the level forming the new lower low, we had come nicely into the level. Then what did we see again? We had a nice sell-off from the level. So for every of the times price tested the level, we had huge price movements in the opposite direction on 1, 2, 3, 4 occasions, making this level a daily key level. So that level for me is my area of interest, would be my first area of interest, where I would potentially look to get in on selling opportunities because very clearly I've identified the market structure to the downside. And now we had come into the level the very first time, and then we had a seller from the level, and then we tested the level again. This is where at the second retest of the level, I had my first entry for shorts at the second retest of the level. Right about here was where I had my first entry for shorts. Now, once you're able to identify an area of interest, the very next thing would be to wait for price to come into your area of interest. And then at the retest of your already identified area of interest is where you want to scale down to the lower time frames for trade entry confirmations. And these entry confirmations would be the rejection and the momentum candlestick closes, divergence, lower time frame, shift structure, chart patterns such as the head and shoulder patterns, the inverse head and shoulder pattern, the double tops and the double bottoms. And then as soon as I add that second retest of this level, where I'm potentially looking for sell opportunity, also I scaled down to the 15 minutes time frame at the retest of the level. Now this is the retests we had identified from the daily time frame previously, right about here. And as soon as price came right into my identified daily key level by area of interest, I'd noticed a 15 minutes time frame shift in structure, and that would be something of the nature. As soon as we have a break below the previous higher low, signifying that the market structure is shifted from bullish to bearish. Clearly from the 15-minute time frame, we had seen price printing us higher highs and higher lows. And then this was where we had the nice shifts in structure, or we had this sell-off that closed below this previous higher low, shifting the market structure from bullish to bearish. So right about here, we had this as the most recent higher low that presented this higher high. And then we had a nice shift breaking below the higher low, presenting us a lower low. And as soon as that happened, I knew I was getting ready to go short on this. I'd waited for a potential lower high. So we have seen a lower low. I'd waited for the potential lower high, retesting a previously broken structure, previously a support, now turned resistance. And then also clearly present at the level is the 50 exponential moving average And because we're below the exponential moving average, the retest of the exponential moving average, now in this case, expected to act as a dynamic resistance. So we're clearly retesting a 15 minutes time frame structure level, a previous level of support now on resistance, and also in conflict with the fact that we have the 50 exponential moving average present right at the level, acting in this case as a dynamic resistance. And then I add my entry signal for shorts at the retest of the exponential moving average, where we are seeing the bearish momentum candlestick, this bearish engulfing candlestick that closed right below the exponential moving average was where I had my first entry confirmation for sell at the potential lower high. Entry for sell at the bearish engulfing candlestick close, 15 minutes time frame. And then this takes us back to the daily time frame again. Yeah, and this was the first sell trade entry. Now, very quickly, as soon as we had this sell-off, we had come right into this level where we had the lower low formed. And then we come right into the level and I noticed we had traded sideways for 4 consecutive days. Every one of these were a whole full day, 24 hours, as you can see. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4. We had traded sideways. We're more like in a daily range. And then we had broken below this key level, like we had established previously. And then we came right into the level. We stored at the level for 4 days. And then if I would go a step further to investigate this very level, the reason as to why we had the nice price sell-off with very bearish momentum candlesticks and then came right into the level only to store. Looking to the left of this very level, So I'm trying to see if we can get price data from the past. I don't know why this is not loading up. I think this just might be my network. Sorry guys, nothing is popping up. But then if this had allow us go back in time, we would have noticed from previous chart data that this level is a key level because for every of the times we have tested the level in the past, we have had huge movements in the opposite direction. And that happens to be the very reason why we had this nice sell-off, come right into the level, and then ended up ranging for 4 days before eventually having this bearish daily candlestick close below this level. Now making this a previous level of support broken, now turned a new resistance. So back to the rules again. The first thing you want to do is establish the market direction. And now very clearly from the daily time frame, we can see the market is still very much in a downtrend. And once you've established the market direction, the next thing you want to do is identify an area of interest. And the next level area of interest for me that stands out would be this level right here. As you can see, we had come into the level and then we bounced off from the level. We had here a second time with the level holding up as a support also. And even though the charts will not give us the previous data of this very level, best believe, guys, in previous times, price have had multiple retest and bounce off from that very level. So now we're having to clearly see a break below the level. And because now we're below the level, at the retest of the level, a previously broken support level now expected to act as a resistance level. And at this week retest, the daily candlestick week retest of the level was where I had my next entry for sale. So clearly this is now our area of interest where I was potentially looking to get in on the next sell trade at the retest of this level, because now we're below the level. Previously, when we were above the level held up as support, and now we're below the level is expected to hold up as resistance. And then the next thing to do would be wait for price to come into the level and then scale down to the lower time frames, the 1 hourly, the 15 minutes, the 30 minutes time frame for trade entry confirmations. And at this week retest of the level was where I scaled down to the 1 hourly time frame to get my sell entry confirmation. Crazy. I don't know why this is not showing up. Now, this week retest is where I'd scale down to the 1 hourly time frame for our entry confirmation for sell. And this is the daily candlestick close that broke the 4 days range. And here we have the retest of the daily area of interest, being our daily key level. Previously, the level held up as support. The broken support becomes a new resistance. And you can see we have a retest of a previously broken support and resistance, the week, the daily area of interest. And also you can see the exponential moving average 50 present right at the level. And because we are seeing the candlesticks below the exponential moving average, in this case, expected to act as a dynamic resistance. And then as soon as we had the tap of the area of interest, the tap of our 50 exponential moving average, we had a nice rejection candlestick close from the level. And I'd waited for the next candlestick to present me even more confirmation. And that ended up closing as a bearish engulfing candlestick. And that was my entry signal for the second trade. And then it's one thing to get in on the trade, it's another to be able to identify the best exit points. And then since I entered the trade, since I got the setup from the daily time frame, this is where I'll move back to the daily time frame to identify possible levels where I'd potentially look to get out of the trade. And now, guys, you have to understand price will move from one key level to another key level, just like it did right here. As soon as we had this huge sell-off, we had come right into the next key level. After breaking this key level, we had come right into the next key level, and then we stalled there for 4 days. And then having broken below this key level, I knew for a fact price was certainly going to keep heading to the downside. And then I had my first level take profits right here. And then my overall level take profits at 31, 100 psychological round number. As you can see, looking to the previous time price tested the level, you can see we had huge sell-off. We had price tested the level right here. And then this previous time we tested the level, we had a huge price rally from the level. So I was pretty much expecting for price to come right into the level again and then do the very same thing as it did the previous time. And now, guys, this is the level I was trying to point out. Where price failed to give me the previous data point for that level. And you can see I'm not making this up, guys, all the way back to 2021. And this right here is sometime around October 2021. You can see we came into the level and then the level acted as a support. Right about here, support. And then we had a break below the level with the level acting as a resistance. And that explains the very reason why as soon as we came into the level right about here, we had to pause and then range for 4 days before eventually having a break of the level. And as soon as we had our both entries for sale, this is where we patiently wait for price to move in our anticipated direction, which it did, presenting us and as many that got in on this would be one of the juiciest and the easiest and the simplest rather 1 to 20 risk to reward trade setup.